القريب الطيب المجيب الرقيب الحسيب يا رب المقيت الوارث السبوح الودود الفتاح الصمد الواحد الأحد.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for sticking with us. You're on American Muslims Today. I told you a few weeks ago that we were looking forward to the honor of speaking to a very dedicated and knowledgeable scholar. That day has come. We have with us today the author, the professor, and Holocaust historian, Norman Finkelstein. We thank him very much for joining us. Thank you, sir. Welcome to our program.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much. A friend and author has wrote a book of the Holocaust Industry, and also more recently Beyond Chutzpah, a book talking about the exploitation of Jewish suffering. We wanted to kind of talk to you about, you've suffered a lot because of the books that you have authored. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've recently gone through after writing these very exhaustive books?
Well, I don't like to play the martyr in public. I had certain problems in my professional life, and I was eventually denied tenure at the university where I was teaching. But I managed to remain productive, and I still remain committed to the same basic ideas that have animated me most of my life. So, as I said, it's just not my thing to play the martyr.
Exactly. A person like yourself has so much to offer the world. You don't need to even go there, but we certainly admire you for your stances. Now, you are a person of Jewish descent, and also we understand that your parents are actually Holocaust survivors. Is that correct?
Yes, my late father, both my late parents were in the Warsaw Ghetto until the uprising was put down in 1943, and then they both were deported to concentration camps, and on both sides of my family, every member was exterminated in gas chambers, apart from my mother and father.
So obviously you have a very unique perspective. What actually pushed you to author such books like The Holocaust Industry, and what is the basic premise of that book for those who are not familiar with your work?
Well, I think that the Nazi Holocaust was turned into a shakedown racket and a political weapon. Basically, it was used to immunize Israel from criticism. Whenever anyone ventured to criticize Israel, immediately the Holocaust was invoked, either to immunize Israel from criticism or to silence critics on the ground that somehow they were Holocaust deniers or some sort of lunacy like that. And then in the 1990s, during the Clinton administration, the Nazi Holocaust was used as a shakedown operation to extort monies from European countries on the fraudulent grounds that they were trying to compensate what were called needy Holocaust victims.
I made a comment earlier about how I thought that there was a kind of turning point in terms of this idea that Israel is above criticism and that they are, completely and totally above reproach in the way that they are approaching the Middle East conflict. And I began to see a turning point. And then I began to see all of these movies coming out with Holocaust themes. And I joked about it there for a while. But then when I saw every single movie almost coming out within the last year, 2008, having a Holocaust theme, do you think that these groups that received these monies and so on and so forth, they were kind of involved in this racketeering, are they involved in, do you think they're involved in influencing the motion picture industry to kind of drum up more sympathy because of this turning of the page in thought?
Well, first, there are many issues you raised there, and they need to be separated out. I do think it's probably true that because Israel's stock has been dropping in recent years, that those sympathetic to Israel in Hollywood probably thought it wouldn't be a nice thing to do for the cause to churn out a few more Holocaust movies. There's probably some truth to that. On the other hand, there's no real evidence that there's any turning point in U.S. attitudes towards Israel. The U.S. has historically criticized Israel on many occasions for the settlements expansion of the settlements. Sometimes, as under George Bush Sr., there were some mild penalties imposed on Israel for its settlement expansion. So there's really no major changes occurring under Barack Obama. There's no reason to suppose any real changes will occur.
Pardon me, I was thinking more along the context of public opinion.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
No disagreement there. Yes, and I do think it's reasonable to suppose that people sympathetic to Israel in Hollywood would think that films like this are good for the cause. And, just like there were many communists in Hollywood in the 1930s and 40s, and they would make films which were sympathetic to workers and sympathetic to the communist cause. That's par for the course. It shouldn't raise any eyebrows.
A lot of people don't understand or mischaracterize or are afraid to discuss the word Zionism. Can you briefly give us an idea of what is the basis of Zionism?
I don't think, again, I'm not sure if it's useful to get involved in these kinds of ideological debates about what is or what isn't Zionism. Because the moment you start discussing topics like that, it creates a diversion in which somebody comes along and says, no, that's not what Zionism, this is what Zionism is, that's not what Zionism, this is what Zionism is. And you lose sight of what should be our focus. Our focus should not be to try to resolve some sort of ideological debate about what is and what isn't Zionism. Our focus should be to try to end a horrific and brutal and occupation that's been enduring now for some 40 years. And so I think rather than debate ideological issues, we should try to clarify the factual record. What actually is happening? Is Israel acting in conformity with or in defiance of international law? Which side is blocking a resolution of the conflict? Is it Hamas that's the problem? Is it Iran that's the problem? Is it the Arab states that's the problem? Or is it Israel and the United States that are the problem? Those are the sorts of things, I think, which are, the record is very clear. There's no need to speculate, and there's no need to get into ideological hair-splitting. There's a very clear and unambiguous record which we can cite, and which seems to me to be a much more productive route to trying to end the occupation. Even though I did my doctoral dissertation on the theory of Zionism, so at some level I have a material stake in the question. So far as my political involvement goes, or my political commitments go, I try to steer away from questions like that because I don't think they get anywhere.
That's an important observation, and I appreciate the insight. Now, in terms of what you mentioned Iran with the recent political upheaval that's going on there. We wanted to get into that a little bit. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. We're going to move into the news segment right now. But when we come back, more with our friend Norman Finkelstein. We appreciate you joining us. We'll be right back.